Good morning, everyone. I suppose everyone is joining us and connecting. Just one more minute. Perhaps I should start with apologizing for the short delay, but sometimes technology plays tricks on us. And we're going to be talking about technology. I'm very pleased to be here for another CERC, Canada Excellence Researcher in Migration webinar. And it's great to be here and welcome several colleagues and actual friends from both sides of the Atlantic. Today, we're going to be speaking about the use of advanced digital technologies in the integration of migrants, asylum seekers, and generally newcomers. And we're going to particularly focus on one app, the WORKEEN app, that we have created with Simone Baglioni, Antonio Ascolese, who is here, and several other colleagues who I'm very pleased to see that they have joined in this webinar, who are part of the SIRIUS Research Project Consortium. While Simone, who is the scientific coordinator of the project, will say a few things about the whole research, I'd like to say that I was one of the partners when I was based in Europe, together also with my colleague who is also here, Irina Isakian. And at the time, we're both based in Europe, and SIRIUS is an EU-funded project. It's funded under the Horizon Research Framework Program, and we're grateful to the European Commission for that. So these projects give the opportunity for several universities and research teams to get together to work on a common topic. And then Simone will explain more about this. I'll just take 1 minute to introduce a very distinguished and interdisciplinary panel that we have together here. So Simone Baglioni, who is a professor at the University of Parma, but actually started this project as a professor at the University of Glasgow in a pure European mobile fashion. And he's undercover because he's a professor of sociology in the Department of Economics and Management, but he's very much one who works on migration, on social movements, and everything radical that you can think of. After Antonio, I'd like to introduce Antonio. After Simone, I'd like to introduce Antonio Ascolese. And Antonio, after 2 years working with you, I only discovered today that you're a psychologist. So what I knew of Antonio is that he's a serious game developer. He works in the company Imaginary, which is based in Milan, in Italy, and they work a lot with serious games. And I think now I have understood some of the very important insights that Antonio gave us when we were working together to try to create this app. And so he's a serious gamer, but also an undercover scientist. Then we have Alexandra Zavos from Solidarity Now in Athens. And again, I'm very pleased to have Alexandra. We've known each other for several years. And Alexandra is part of a very important NGO in Athens that is working to welcome and support migrants and asylum seekers in Greece, and has been very much at the forefront of the refugee emergency since 2015. And she was also a partner at the SIRIUS Project and has helped us develop the app and also test it with beneficiaries. And to complete the picture, I'm very pleased to have with us Ada Wong, who is the Vice President of Marketing, Communication and Digital Strategies at Access Employment, that I think several of our participants who are from Canada certainly know. Access is a large and very important settlement sector organization that helps particularly newcomers with their labor market integration. And I want to say that Access is also a pioneer in using digital technologies to provide services and to connect with migrants, and also to explore how these new information and communication technologies can help us in improving, the labor market insertion of newcomers in Canada and more broadly. And without further ado, I'll give the floor to Simone to present the project and then introduce, and then Antonio will present us the app. Stay with us because you'll see how to play the app. I think Antonio will share some secrets about, I've had a lot of fun in playing the app as well and trying to improve my score. And also, as usual, we will be taking questions and comments from the chat. And, you're very welcome to write those at any time. Thank you. And Simone.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thanks to CERC, to your chair and your university for hosting us. again, we have already had the pleasure to present SIRIUS other portion of the research to your community. And we are very happy to have the opportunity this time to discuss our app. Before we go into that, I think I need to share my screen to quickly introduce the SIRIUS project. Which, as Anna said, is an Horizon 2020 project, so funded by the EU. I hope you see my video, my screen, which is running since early 2018 to investigate what are the barriers and what are the enablers, so which factors facilitate and which factors impede labor market entry, and then also good performances from newcomers, and in particular from refugees and asylum seekers. I have just chosen a couple of questions to illustrate briefly in the few minutes I have, what do we do, what we have done actually in SIRIUS in these 3 years. We've tried to answer to questions like why employment-wise, some newcomers, not all, but some do perform worse or less well than locals and natives, which factors prevent them from entering the labor market in many cases, and even when they enter the labor market, which factors can explain their difficulties in getting the jobs for which they did study or for which they possess the qualifications, which is the reality we observe in many European, in our case, in countries, but also in other high-income countries. We have done so as academics do, as Anna said, we're undercover, radical sometimes academics, but we have been using the traditional, or if you like, the conventional tools of academic research, so digging out to explore quantitative data and databases, building our own databases, doing interviews, so speaking with people that are migrants themselves or their work with migrants, supporting their entering the labor market, or do provide services that are important when someone who is new in a country is looking for a job, like providing information on where to find the jobs, how to apply, but also provide language courses, and so on and so on. But in addition to the conventional tools of academics, we have also used other tools which are still relevant to provide evidence about issues, about problems and solutions in our societies, but let's say, use different tools like artistic performances or audiovisual material. This is actually the big SIRIUS family in its last face-to-face event. It was in November 2019 in Florence. We were meeting to discuss research findings, but we also took the opportunity to host an exhibition of art by refugees and local NGOs and an international NGO as well called United Painting, which supports refugees expressing their identities, their dreams, but also their capacities via art performances, live art performances on streets. In this case, it goes on the streets nearby the University of Florence in Italy, which was hosting us. We have also produced an audio-visual material, so a movie, which I invite you to look and watch on our website. And today we're discussing a SIRIUS game. Give me another couple of minutes just to say a couple of things on the game, why we've done it. Before that, let me just thank all my teams, partners across the 7 countries in which SIRIUS runs. So Denmark, the Switzerland, Czech Republic, Greece, Finland, Italy, the UK. And we've also done quite a bit of research to cover the EU level. And we also have 3 NGOs, Solidarity Now, Alexandra is with us today speaking, but also Solidar, who is here with us, based in Brussels, and Multicultural Centrum Prague, who is also working with us on the project from Prague. We're running for 3 and a bit. We were supposed to run for 3 years. In between, we've met with the pandemic. So we've extended our research also to explore, among other things, the role that the app could play during a pandemic to support newcomers getting better informed about their new country labor market. So we haven't, as you see, stopped working. We're still working, although we do it in different modalities. And we have even new followers, as you can see from this picture. And this is actually, I have to acknowledge that the cat is Matthias' cat, researchers in the University of Florence team, who has allowed me to use this picture. So now, why WORKEEN? Why are we presenting you today and discussing with you a mobile phone app to support newcomers find a job? Well, we based our idea on having an app and on the issues and the content of the app, which will be illustrated by Antonio, by building on our results. But we know from our own research in SIRIUS, but also from earlier research, that some of the key barriers newcomers face are in entering or finding a job are related with their pre-employment status, and others are related to when they get a job. Some of them have difficulties in maintaining the jobs or in actually having a decent salary or rights respected. So we thought that we could, and then we'll see what you think, whether our assumption or idea was correct, we could help preventing some of these problems also by engaging people, in particular newcomers, but also local, let's say, young unemployed, to train them to face and overcome some of the issues which deter their entry into labor market, like the lack of information about what one needs to provide to look and to apply for a job, ID or national insurance related documentation, but also issues which are more, if you like, connected with the job experience, like how to face a first job interview, how to write a resume, or how to rebuild a resume when you have to start your life almost from scratch, as it happens in many cases when refugees enter a new country. We have also discussed with experts and with people working with migrants themselves and with people working with migrants' employability, the importance of what we call in the jargon soft skills, so behavioral aspects that are relevant when you enter a job for the first time, no matter actually if you're a newcomer or not, but there are specific issues related as well with specific jobs, which it's better if we, the worker, is aware of to secure a smooth job entrance or transition into work. And we have also thought about how to provide information about labor rights to protect people from exploitation, which is unfortunately a reality we face in many of our countries, in particular where vulnerable people enter our societies and the labor market. So we thought, to say in a nutshell, that all this could be also conveyed by having people training their skills, learning about the new environment while playing on a mobile phone, which is an easy everyday tool that we all have and we are familiar with. Whether that was a good assumption, I really leave it to you to judge and to discuss with us later on. And I pass the floor to Antonio. Just as I said before, I pass the floor to Antonio. This is our video documentary. We've been, as I said, very engaged with artistic and audiovisual performances. Have a look at our websites or follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, or email us to learn more. Thank you, Anna, and the floor is yours again.
Thank you very much, Simone, for making this introductory presentation so that also the app can be contextualized. I switch immediately to Antonio for the actual game.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Good morning, everybody, for that side of the ocean, and good afternoon to this side. And thank you to Anna for the personal presentation, and also to Simone to have presented the scenario where we started to think, to design and to build the game. I start immediately sharing my slides and my presentation because I want to share with you a lot of things, mainly based on the design aspects of the game, because I think that they are the most interesting. They can be the most interesting for you. Okay. As you have already said, just a brief introduction, because I was undercover, and I'm often undercover because I'm a psychologist, and in most of cases I represent a technical partner in different projects, and so it's often the same, because I have to explain that I'm a psychologist. I'm expert in digital solution. It means that I'm expert in usability and user experience, but also in this case in motivation and in the way that people use technological tools. The company is called Imaginary. It's based in Milan, and since 2004 it has been developing serious game. It was one of the first company in Europe to study this new tool. First of all, I just want to say a few words about what a serious game is, because probably not all the people attending this webinar is aware of this. Actually, a serious game is a digital game with a serious purpose. I mean, it's not a game with entertainment aims, even if it can be fun. The idea is to use the advantages of the games, mainly related to positive emotion and motivation, to obtain other kind of aims, more serious. And there are three main characteristics behind games that let us define it a serious game. The first one is the presence of some ludic aspects that are the ones related to motivation, engagement, and that are also important for the learning process. The second one is simulation, that is a strictly connection to learning, because our mind somehow has this property to be able to simulate events. And when we simulate also in a digital environment, our brain, our body, and our emotions are preparing themselves to cope with this event also in reality. And so simulation is really important in a virtual tool, is really important for the learning process. The third characteristic is related to the content that should be serious. I mean, we have knowledge to share with a game or a training, a specific training, and so on. These below are the three main fields where Imaginary used to develop games. One is the health sector, the second is the training and education, the third one is smart cities and communities. I think that probably WORKEEN, the game that we are presenting now, stays between the last two. Partially it's related to education and the training, for example, related to soft skills, as Simone said before, but also it's related to the importance of our community to stay in a smart city. To design and develop games, we need a multidisciplinary team. We have it in Imaginary. And for example, we have developers, learning experts, we have a graphical team, game designers, psychology, like me. But for each different game we develop, we need an expert in that specific sector. It means that we develop games in completely different sectors, and we need some expert every different time. In this case, for the WORKEEN project, the experts we use in our team to collaborate are the partner of the SIRIUS project itself. These are the main phases of the first part of the design, that is the studying part. The project started at the end of 2018 and was in the application, the game application was published on the store in the end of 2019. First of all, we started with some questionnaire to experts. Again, in this case, the experts are the partners of the consortium of the SIRIUS project, where we tried to study the usual issues during migrations, the cultural differences, the best practice to know what to do in different situations, the resources that these people have, the differences between men and women, and the failure or successes experiences. Then we tried to define some use cases to better know which kind of people we are referring to, which will be our users at the end of our project. Then we tried to find the typical jobs that these people usually find in at least in European countries. And it is very important because if in the game we insert some jobs that migrants or asylum seekers can't do for any reason, I don't know, it's useless. Then we also tested the application during the prototyping phase. Again, in this case, we did it thanks to the expert, probably mainly the ONGs in the SIRIUS project. As you can see, the application, the game application is present on the Play Store market at the moment, so you can download it. We decided to share it only using the Android market, because we studied also this aspect, and we knew that migrants mainly use Android devices, so we decided to dedicate our application for this kind of the market. Then we had to study a lot of aspects related to the design. First of all, the kind of characters. We made a lot of studies about this. First of all, we create a state of the art, and then we tried to elaborate both the characters and the environment, as you can see here. When I talk about environments, I mean both the external part and also the internal part. And then after several weeks of studying this part, we decided to create this kind of characters. So trying to avoid too many details, and the same is for the kind of environments. But in a moment you can see them moving in the game, and that is probably more interesting for you. Then we had to cope also with some usability issues. First of all, we had to design all the graphical interface. That I mean the kind of buttons needed on the screen, the kind of information needed on the screen, and so on. Then, for example, we had to study the usability. I mean how to keep the phone in your mind, in your hand. Sorry, there are at least two different ways. For example, the vertical mode or the horizontal. So we made a lot of studies about this, and finally we decided to have it in the vertical mode, because it's a quicker way to access the phone and also to play, because you can do this just with one hand, and so on. Then there are also some issues related to the game design. The game design, I mean, we had to plan and to decide which kind of content we had to insert in the game, and how to manage all of them, and how to move inside the game, and so on. So we decided to, this is one of the first draft of the design we made. I show you just to share with you how a game is made in the first very beginning phases. In this case, we decided to use a map-based approach. So we create a certain environment with just a few elements. POI and NPC, it means the point of interest. So some of the elements in the map could be interactive, and the same is for some characters. NPC means non-player characters, so characters in the game that are managed by the system and not by the users itself. And then this kind of map can enlarge during the game, increase the size, but also increase the elements, the interactive elements. So both the buildings and the characters increase during the game according to your performance, according to the status the player reached. And in these different levels, there are different elements, game elements, but also elements that has to be learned in reality to better integrate in the host country. For example, at some administrative issues, I mean the kind of document requested to complete some activity, the relationships, then the main focus of the application of the application is related to the job itself. So we created a sort of training to generate a curriculum, and then we also created three different jobs to try this job to work with new colleagues and in new environments. In the game, we have two main modalities to interact and to play the game. One is the so-called branch stories mode that we use to manage all the dialogues. In a branch story, you can decide which are the consequences of your action and in your dialogues. So you can select a branch, so a different kind of the story, different final for your story. And furthermore, we inserted some mini games, sometimes to create to train some specific tasks. For example, to generate the curriculum, you have to select the correct information and insert them in a specific document. And then we have also these mini games to play. I mean, these are the fun parts of the game. We have of the application. We have different games where people in a fun context, in a ludic context, can complete some tasks. I show you also this part later in a video. We inserted also this aspect in the game that is related to the feedback, because in a learning process, that is what we wanted to reach and to do with our application. It's very important to have feedback about decision that we can take in the game, during the game. So we generated these different kind of feedback, positive and negative. When the user selected the incorrect option, we give him or her a suggestion about a more adapt behavior. And then we have scores. In particular, with this game, we measure these three soft skills, mainly during the simulation of the three jobs, but also in other activities that users can do. during the game, and the soft skill we selected are related to communication, socialization, and organization. And these three scores are always present on the screen. This is, for example, one of the elements we decided to keep on the screen always. And then I decided to prepare this slide about the challenges because I used to design serious games, and I involved in this activity since I can't remember, more than 10 years. But every time there are specific aspects related to the game and the design. In this case, one of the main challenge is related to the kind of target, because we had a complex and heterogeneous target here with different ages, different country, different cultures, different languages. And this is related to the users, the players, but we have also a lot of different information related to the host countries, because in each of them we have different rules, laws, different documentation that people said to provide, and so on. And so the difficult thing here, the challenge, was to integrate all these aspects in a unique application. Just to give you an impression, as a short impression, this is part of the dialogue table we have inserted in the game. For each of these columns, you have to imagine we have all the dialogues of the game in a different language or adapted to a different country. You can just imagine probably what is behind the game, because this is just a part of the table. I couldn't insert everything in just in one slide. Now I'd like to share with you a video. It's recorded I made while I was using the app, so it's not a trailer. It's the editing phase. It was really short, as you can see. I deleted the audio elements just because I want to explain some parts of the video. And I know that it's not so nice to be seen, but we have a vertical vision of the video. It's just because we have a vertical application, and so I couldn't rotate it. Okay, as you can see, the game starts with the selection of the country and the language. And then this is the main character that can be a woman or a man. The player select this at the beginning, and this character can go around the town trying to find some point of interest to interact with. For example, in this case, the characters arrived at the employment center. Then you can enter some of the buildings, the unlocked ones. Here you can see now a dialogue. For example, in this case, the idea is to collect document and information to plan the next steps to find a job in this country. There are several quests in the game. When I talk about quests, that is a game word, I mean short missions that are used to unlock new environments or new missions, as I said before. Once you have the language certificate, for example, now the character is obtaining his language certificate. The player can go on to collect other documents. And you have also seen the map, because as you probably can see, the environment, the map, the city is really large, and it's pretty difficult to orient or around the city. So we have a map where you can always go and see where you are. This is one of the mini game where you have to let the people of the queue pass. It's to represent the idea of the queue that you have to leave when you go in a public office. Okay, this is another kind of dialogue. So every time you finish one mission, you can go on and try to find new missions and so on. You can see, for example, here some errors. You see with the red box, for example, here. And this is part of the simulation intent. I mean, also in reality, you can have mistakes. And so the same is in this kind of environment, even if we are here in a safe environment. Here, for example, we have to obtain a reference letter. So you have to call your previous employer, and you can find you can obtain it in the map around the city. Or this is the list of the documents you can collect during the game. In the game, there are also places to meet people, like the church or the mosque, to find the local contacts, for example, and so on. And you can find also some jobs with no contract, for example, in this case. And so you have to learn also to avoid some environments and some specific people. Here, this is the mini game to create the curriculum vitae based on personal data. So, for example, here the player has to learn how to integrate all the information and to be honest, for example, so to avoid to give false information. Then in the game, there are also some social activities that can be done. Actually, we promote them. For example, to meet people. In this case, these people is suggesting to complete some volunteering. And in this case, we have another kind of mini game that is about volunteering. Here, the player has to drive a scooter while flying around the city. In this case, he can meet new people and also to go around the city. Then there is the job interview. Again, we give some suggestion here through the application, for example, to use appropriate clothes during the interview, the importance of punctuality, and we give also some suggestion about the kind of formality to keep during the interview with the boss, the new manager. And here in the game, there are in this part of the game, the player can select the favorite job he wants to start that should be related to their information and their history and their curriculum vitae. For example, they can select the cleaner in a company as a job. That is the one I'll show you. Then he or she can also decide to start as a warehouse worker. And the last one is a job in an hotel, like a receptionist or something like this. Then after this part of the interview, the users can start the first day at work, where the player has a lot of tasks more related to the job itself. For example, in this case, she or he has to clean some environments, but there are also other parts more related to the relationships. And so, for example, they have to meet new colleagues, and they have to meet them and to collaborate with them in different tasks. And here, in a while, you see also another mini game specific for the cleaner. So there are some mini games that are in some parts of the game that are the same for every player, but some other parts are specific and are related to the branch you select during the game. So, for example, if you decide to do another job, not the cleaner, you can't see this part. You can play this mini game that we are watching in a while. This is the mini game where you have to clean and you need battery and to go on and so on. Let me go. Okay, this is the agenda where the player can have a look at their tasks, what's done, what's missing, and so he or she can decide what to do during next phases of the game. I think it's enough. There are some other parts, but I think I showed you the most important. At the end of the first day, you can try the second day and of work and so on. My idea was just to give you some impression, but I think the most important thing in this with this kind of tool is to try them. So my suggestion is to download it. The application is ready only for the Android market, so you can find it in Google Play. There are several languages, so I'm sure you can find your ones to play the game. And there are also several countries, at least the European countries, as the game was developed in the context of an European project. It was really fast. I don't know if it was clear and useful, but I tried to highlight the most important thing, at least from my point of view, during the design phase. It was a real pleasure working to this project and collaborate with so many partners. And it was a really important way to cope with a social issue, I mean.
Antonio, thank you very much. Yeah, I think you've covered a lot, and I think you gave a great introduction to the game. And I very much hope that many of the people who are here with us today will be able to try it out, because of course that can only give you the real impression of how the game works. I think it has become clear, because I know there were some questions in the chat, it has become clear from the presentation that this is not an information platform, because there's been a lot of apps in the last few years providing information. Like if I am in Toronto and I'm looking for, I don't know, the immigration service or an employment service, giving me the information. Well, this is really a serious game.
Yeah.
I now understand again, now that I've discovered that Antonio is a psychologist, because we had a lot of discussion, and it would be great also to reflect on this about the motivation. Why would one spend time in doing this game? And of course, I know there are some questions in the chat that we'll take later about the impact that I don't think we've had yet the chance to ask, but which of course remains an important question. And as you can imagine, here we had a lot of discussions with Antonio. I remember our discussions about the avatars and what they would look like. What should they look, because we had even entertained the idea of having some little monster instead of anyone looking human, just to do away with cultural preconceptions and, you know, ethnic and racial preconceptions. But I don't want to, we've had a lot of stories to tell, but I'd like to give the floor to Alexandra because Solidarity now had piloted the game, and she can probably share with us some insights, and then of course Ada. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. So as I was already introduced as Alexandra from Solidarity Now. Solidarity Now is an organization working in Greece with vulnerable people in general, but we have a sort of a special focal point on refugees, migrants, asylum seekers. One of our basic pillars is sort of the livelihoods in general, so access to the labor market. And we have different projects with mainly sort of our employability counseling services. So where we receive both vulnerable Greeks, but mainly I would say asylum seekers and migrants, to receive counseling on how to access the labor market in Greece, as well as other interesting programs. So with our involvement in SIRIUS, we were able to initially test the app, I believe in September of 2019 during a workshop, not a workshop, labor market integration workshop, a job fair in Thessaloniki, which lasted 2 days, and which was under the umbrella of SIRIUS in general, where we received a lot of different beneficiaries, refugees, asylum seekers, and so on, who came to assist in different workshops, and that was our chance to test out the app. I believe the app had not yet been translated or had not been finalized. So it was initially in English, so we had to pick, select beneficiaries who had a working level of English, and I think we tested it on 8 different people, from their sort of early 20s to mid 40s, of different backgrounds, both educational and national, ethnic. So we had quite a few Afghans, a Turk, a Moroccan, an Iranian, and we had them go through the app with a social worker who had learned to navigate the app in general, and who invited each of them separately to play the game and to share their first initial thoughts, and he really helped them by prompting them, asking the right questions. So there are questions about how much they enjoyed the game, and what were the difficulties, if they understood what the game was about, if the kind of the aim of the game was clear to them, and all of them sort of respond in different ways, generally very, very positive. One of them, expressed the fact that it was, for her, it was very clear that sort of the whole bureaucratic system of finding a job is all about waiting in line, knowing which service to go to, having to have a lot of patience, and that was her way of expressing it. Another one said it taught her how to ask for the right things. They were also asked about the sort of the technical part. I think some of them had trouble with the English at the time, but they were told that it was going to be in different languages, and now the Greek version of the app has Farsi, Arabic, and English, which are 3 of the most common languages that are asked for. They liked the aesthetic of it. They liked what it looked like. Most of them understood it very well. Actually, they understood what was happening, how to navigate it, and so on. So the feedback was both interesting and I think helpful altogether. After this, we also gave it, when it was already translated, to our different employability services, both in Athens and Thessaloniki, so the 2 main cities in Athens, in our solidarity centers. And because they're the ones who have the direct contact with the beneficiaries, and help people of different backgrounds and educational backgrounds to find a job on a daily basis. And so they all had a look at it. In general, their feedback was also that it was quite a realistic app, kind of show the reality of especially the part where you're looking for a job, and where you have to learn what every different document is that you need to be provided with, and all of that. And this was very, very helpful. It was also said that it was very helpful that it was offline, because so many of the refugees in Greece are in areas where they don't have access to internet, so camps and kind of informal shelters and so on. They suggested, though, that it might be good for people that are younger and that have a sort of know a little bit about technology and about games, because for some of our beneficiaries are very, very, do not know how to use phones or technology, and so it was suggested that it'd be more useful for younger populations. And that it would be very, very useful in cooperation with employability or job counseling sessions, so sort of combined in workshops. So with this in mind, we then we had them much later on test. We gave them the kind of the flexibility in Thessaloniki, at least to test the game again, and they tested again with a group of unaccompanied minors, if I'm not mistaken, 17, 18 years old. I think there were five people who spoke Urdu, and so they were Pakistani and I think Bangladeshi. Anyways, they spoke Urdu and they also spoke Farsi, so they might have been sorry, they were Afghan and Pakistani. And again, the feedback was generally very positive. Some of them sort of recognized the process that they had gone through themselves, and they were also able to help each other. So that's why it showed that being in a kind of in a group, even though they all were working on their own phone, they were able to kind of help each other, support each other, explain different things to each other, and they had the overall guidance of an employability counselor as well. One interesting feedback though was that some of the Afghans who did understand it said that a lot of other Afghans in Greece, at least of that age, can't read. So maybe an additional part of the app could be something where there's a sort of a vocal, where they read out the different dialogues and so on. That would help for a lot of the population that is still hasn't learned to read and would prefer sort of hearing the dialogues. And quickly, another again with the same feedback from the employability counselors, we also gave the game to social workers and educators in 2 of our transitory unaccompanied minor shelters that we've had now for the last couple of months and that are closing soon, that are in northwestern Greece, in Velvedo and Konitsa. And there, each of these separate shelters had about 7 to 10, I think all males, test out the game as well, the WORKEEN game. They were again Farsi, Arabic, and English-speaking beneficiaries, all young and all sort of used to using phones and technology. And in one of the shelters, it was used in an educational workshop together with a sort of English class about life skills. So these boys are mainly they're in a shelter until they turn 18, and they're all 16, 17, 18 years old already. And so they really need to learn about sort of life in Greece. So this was a kind of like, I guess, an introductory session about what the next steps will be for them in terms of the different procedures that they'll have to go to in order to find a job, whilst teaching them about English. And this went apparently incredibly well, because the game worked very, very well together with sort of a more educational background that was given by the educational counselors that were there. There was a lot of interaction. It was very positively received. Again, in this workshop, a lot of the boys realized that the few that had actually started these procedures recognized a lot of the different steps that they had to take, and they got quite excited about it, and they told the other boys about it. So there was a whole interactive sort of dynamic in this workshop. The other community center shelter where they're all given the game separately, the feedback was positive, but not as much as this kind of group use of the game with the educational background to it. So that was a lesson learned for us, that it works very well, at least for people that age, for that group, in a sort of more educational workshop background. And yeah, so that's good news, and we're hoping to continue using it in these types of programs with this type of population.
Thank you very much.
I think that's it for me. That's it for me, unless there's any questions, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we welcome questions in the chat. Yeah, and thank you very much, because again, it was very important that we had the chance to pilot the app when it was developed, but not yet available in all the national variations. And yeah, the insights you bring also about the particular hurdles for some groups, and I've written some clarifications in the chat, because I realize the situation in Canada is very different. But it's time, and thank you, Ada, for being so patient. I'm sorry we're going over time, but I think it was interesting to spend a bit more time in the app. And I'd like to have now the comments of Ada.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I think this was a great opportunity. I see quite a few parallels between our experience using technology to support immigrants in Canada. I'm part of Access Employment, and we help about 40,000 job seekers in the Greater Toronto Area in Canada each year. And I oversee a few of our technology and online service type of projects. And I think the first thing that struck me looking at the game was that feeling of unease, that simulation aspect of, wandering around in a city and not knowing. And I think that's something that definitely within our immigration and our job seeker group is the feeling that they would experience. Just a few comments about our situation in Canada. The majority of our immigrants are permanent residents, so they know they're coming and they will be here in Canada on a permanent basis. And Access overall works with some highly skilled immigrants, so slightly different context. But I think what I'd want to just share is the fact that we do see some parallels in the adoption of technology and motivation to use technology in some of the experiences shared today. So I think overall in the past several years, Canada has actively used online learning opportunities to prepare immigrants for the experience once they arrive. And I think that in the context of what we call pre-arrival services, having that experience available and having that teaching available through technology in an advanced state. So before a migrant is able to leave or before they actually are in the situation, allows them to have better outcomes eventually. And I think that's definitely the case in the situation where someone can play the game, realize that these are the aspects that are missing. And before they're actually in that environment, they've had that experience. And I think that will have a significant impact on success. And we know that that's already something that in the government of Canada is actively trying to do, is prepare people in advance. The second point I'd like to raise is that there has been, and Access has experienced, a significant increase in online interest and online learning. And that over the past 4 years, we went from delivering all of our services entirely in person, 100% in person, to now, even just before COVID, 50-50. So half of the online activity is workshops online, and the other half are people in person. And I think that's what drove us to develop our AI chatbot Vera this past year. So Antonio, I saw quite a few of your maps and your dialogue, and I had a flashback to our experience, our same experience doing that this past year. But really just to speak to the fact that the demand for this type of learning and this type of knowledge information is significant. So the shift in the past several years has been great. And we also have found that there is an appetite within the job seekers we're serving for this type of preparation. So if it's looking at demographics, looking at their digital skill level, and looking at their interest in learning and getting information in this way, I think that is there, and we've experienced the same here. So now at, post-COVID, we know that our activity online obviously is now 100%. So these types of tools are all the more relevant. And then finally, I just wanted to make a point further to Alexandra's talk around technology and these types of games and apps working directly with in-person and employment consultants or employment-related services. And that partnership, I think, is integral. We found that it is very significant in the success of the adoption of technology and also in the finality of what is absorbed and learned. So that hand-in-hand process, it's not technology alone, it's not in-person alone, it's together. I think that is something that we have found the most success with across different platforms, across different types of learning, and certainly I think in this case with the app. And I think overall that's something that we would take that strategic approach. And my questions, if I can drop them here, are definitely around future possibilities for language and, of course, that cultural persona aspect in the development of the different avatars. I think those were of interest to me, but I'll turn it back to you, Anna.
Well, thank you. I think I'll give the floor to Antonio to respond. Yeah, very good questions. Antonio, your mic.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, that was the most important study we did in the first phase. We did it with the help of all the partners. I mean, I don't really know what exactly all of them did, but I know that all our requests were satisfied, and we had a lot of materials, starting with the first questionnaires we created to collect information about this kind of users. I mean, as I said before, one of the main challenges was to have a so heterogeneous kind of users. I mean, this different culture, but not only the culture is the different, and the culture and the language. The issue was also related to the specific age of these people. For example, a specific kind of familiarization with digital tools rather than not, because of course the difference is really important when you develop an application. We decided to create to have the application on the phone. This is, for example, really important because you are assuming that these people have a phone, first of all, and are able to manage a phone, and so on. For example, just to make an example, when we make games for elderly, for example, we use a tablet or a more a huger screen, because it's more easy to watch at it and to interact with it, for example. So we had all this kind of information, and then we created these personas. I don't know if you mean personas from the designing point of view, yeah. And so when I just briefly mentioned the use cases, the study of the use cases is strictly related with the study of the personas for us. So we create a sort of prototype of the users, just to explain this also for the other participants to this webinar. So once we have this sort of personas, because it's the way to call them, we can create the content. We can start to create the content of the app. I don't know if I answered to your question. Just to briefly answer to a comment we received in the chat box. It's correct that there is a lot of text in the game, but we couldn't avoid this. Of course, we knew that our users can manage this because they are not illiterate in most of cases, so they can manage this. We have a lot of information that we can manage through the simulation. It's correct what Anna said before. It's not a list of information in this case. We have to simulate different activities, but it's really difficult to avoid all the words. And so we needed to insert the text what we did is to try to avoid too many words to explain things, and to integrate this part with the dialogues and words with other part with, for example, searching elements around the map or mini games to increase the fun part of the game, of course.
Yes, definitely. The scooter part with distributing the leaflets was the best fun part. And you can also do well easily, actually. I think most of us found ourselves hooked on this, trying to get more points.
Yeah, but there are also other mini games that I didn't show you because I want you to try them, and I want to keep you a bit curious about them.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Yeah, I mean, I'm really motivated. Yeah, we should perhaps add that we should work together to see. I think a Canadian, if I can comment on that, a Canadian app would have to take into account the very different Canadian environment. And I wrote a couple of comments in the chat, but I think a lot of the main mechanisms remain. And even if this, yeah, might seem quite basic in terms of how do you do an interview, how do you dress up, when do you go, how do you ask for a reference letter, how do you build a CV, I think certainly it will be helpful for some people. And as you said, that I can see actually how this could be helpful as a pre-arrival, support, something that you can spend some time kind of, just familiarizing with certain things and even preparing. There was another question in the chat about language certification. For instance, that's very different in different countries in Europe in terms of the level of language required, national language, but also how do you prove that? So, and that was another challenge for our translation slash adaptation. So anyhow, I mean, but do play the app, even if you're not in that country, just choose a country where you'd like to visit. And I think it is interesting, and we would be very happy to hear from you in terms of more comments and questions. I think at this point, I don't know, Simone, if you have any final comments, because I realize we're running out of time and people are busy.
Yeah, no, I think it was very useful to listen to both Alexandra and Ada and to read to the many questions we had on the chat. Unfortunately, I think we should stay here for another hour to answer some of them or to discuss them. But I think that what was advised by both Alex and Ada to use the app in connection with training made by NGOs or public offices or in educational settings is really crucial. I was just doing a sort of a consideration, self-consideration concerned with the digital illiteracy issue, which was one of the important issues that came here, and somehow connected with the age also of the users that Alexandra mentioned, the young people being more familiar with digital tools. I was thinking that this, in some cases, I know that it has been used also as a way to connect generations. So the children, newcomers have used the tool with their parents and somehow, transmitting digital literacy within the family. And I found it interesting also as an opportunity, to link intergenerationally people within the same family. But for sure, it's an issue that we have to consider, and it's a barrier, as you were saying, for all tools that have to be used through digital technology.
Yeah.
I think there was also very, very good advices concerning, well, this, Antonio, would require, I think, work, but it would be very interesting for another project, for example, or for extra funding, to add a vocal app which reads out the sentences, which I found interesting. There was also a comment which was sent to me only whether the app, but it was meant for everybody. So I'm using this opportunity to say it aloud, whether the app would also tackle issues related with LGBTQ issues and diversities and discrimination at work, which in the app we didn't have, but which would be something to be added in an extended version. I just conclude by saying that the app is made to be updated, to be enlarged, if you want, or enriched, also to follow upon a comment which Leila put on the, thank you Leila, put on the chat. So anyone who is also interested in doing a bid or a project in which there's technology like WORKEEN to be exploited, please do it and feel free to approach us. I think we would be more than happy to support this.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Simone, and thank you all for staying with us also longer than the time. Many thanks to Antonio for presenting the app, and to Ada and Alexandra for very helpful comments, and to all for the chat and the questions and the comments. Yeah, and as I mean, we look forward to hear how you did. If you have some time to play tonight, let us know how you did. Thanks again, and see you soon.